Welcome to another episode of Exploring Possibilities. You can catch this show on Apple Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, my website, journeyofpossibilities.com, and now my YouTube channel, YouTube/Cheryl Sitz. I'm your host, Cheryl Sitz, and each week here we have some really interesting, inspiring conversations. Our whole mission is to help you transform life from the inside out. Remember to show us some love so we can keep bringing you these shows. You can do that at journeyofpossibilities.com/support. And Mario Rosales of Tech Life Balance is always right here, making sure all the technology works right, making sure the show comes to you without a hitch. And he could do a lot for you, too, in your practice and what you're growing. Talk to us a little about that, Mario.
Thank you, Cheryl. You know, one of the other things that I hear a lot about is SEO, social media, even YouTube. Maybe you don't want to pay those $400 or $500 bills for SEO. Maybe you just need to know how SEO works. I can help you with that. Or you just need to upload a YouTube video because, you know, everybody's doing it. Rather than buying a marketing expert to do this for you, I can show you how to do that in plain English. I don't have to give you all the techno babble that goes along with all that. The other part that I can help you out, social media. A lot of people are pushing Facebook. A lot of people are pushing Twitter. What's right for you? I can help you figure that out. And that's what part of my consulting is and part of my power of giving you those solutions. I empower you to your solutions that work for you, not work for me. For solutions that empower you, reach me at mariorosales.net or techlifebalance.net.
Who are you? Why are you here? What wonders and opportunities await you beyond physical death? What happened millennia ago to create the damaged earth and fractured societies you see around you? Empowering, enlightening, internationally acclaimed, the Joseph Communications books offer answers to these questions. Spiritual, concise, contemporary, non-denominational, the communications originate from Joseph, a highly evolved discarnate spirit concerned for you and the future of the planet and its peoples. The words of Joseph and his soul group give you the power to bring light and change into your own life and the lives of others and to restore the earth. Available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook formats, the communications can be ordered today at www.thejosephcommunications.com and also from Amazon and other major booksellers. All proceeds are used for further publishing and advertising and to make the communications available worldwide.
You know, right now I could be talking about you, your products, your services, how you can help listeners. It's as easy as contacting me. And you know, right now, all the planets are direct. There is nothing holding us back from manifesting what we want in this powerful 3-year. So what's holding you back from contacting me? We've got some great specials going on right now. So contact me, info@journeyofpossibilities.com, and let's get you on the show. Now for today's guest, writer, poet, keynote speaker, and heart mapping pioneer, Georgia Hurd helps creatives connect to their hearts and access their deepest emotions and inspiration. Among her writings is the book Heart Maps, Helping Students Create and Craft Authentic Writing. Her TEDx talk and a template with instructions to create your own heart map are on a brand new guest blog at journeyofpossibilities.com, and I'll make sure and put a link to that on this show. Her website is heartmaps.com. Welcome, Georgia.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to be here.
I'm really looking forward to playing with you in this space. And we were just talking, it's so funny how you came on the show. When Spirit nudges me to reach out and connect with somebody, I never know where it's going to go. And it's my understanding that up to this point, the heart mapping has primarily been something that has been a personal tool for you and a helper for writers, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've started heart mapping probably about 30 years ago. And it was a tool that I used to kind of let my inner self, my feelings, especially if I were struggling with something. And I realized this was a process that I could use with students that I taught, with writers that I work with, to help them kind of find their voice, find out what's in their hearts that they would like to write about. But it really started out as a personal tool for me.
That's so funny because when I saw it, I actually got to see a sample of it. I don't remember how I stumbled across it online, but I was meant to be. And my own personal journey of healing has been one where I really disconnected from a lot of my feelings. There was a lot of trauma that I didn't know what to do with for a number of years. And so I just shut that part of me down. And when I saw your heart map, it's like, wow, this would be a really fun, creative way to access feelings and start to kind of get in touch with what's going on inside of me now that I've done some of that healing work and get to know myself again. Have you found that to be the case for you?
Yes, I feel that, one of the things that one of my favorite poets, her name is Rita Dove, and she said that, we all have an inner life, and without that, we are nothing. We are shells. And I think in my day-to-day life, being busy and, going grocery shopping and working and caring for, my son and my family, I forgot that I had an inner life that was just, kind of buried and locked inside, especially the busier I got. And so, things would come up and I would feel sad or I'd feel depressed or a memory would come back from my childhood. And I realized that sometimes it's hard to access that. And so I started heart mapping, my childhood memories, my fears, my worries, and it was amazing what came up. It was so surprising. I've done heart mapping now, as I said, for 30 years, and it's always, every time I map my heart, something new emerges that I realize that I had forgotten, or that something is, just on the tip of my tongue or the tip of my memory and wants to be seen, wants to be heard. So it's really, to me, it's a mysterious, amazing process that I definitely, use all the time, kind of over and over again.
Well, and you're moving more into the direction of expanding our uses for this, it seems like, too, which I'm really excited about. So for listeners that haven't yet checked out the blog, so it's the very top blog on Journey of Possibilities under guest blogs. So go check it out. There's a great, there's your TEDx talk on there where you talk about the process, but then you actually have prompting questions and a template where we can create our own heart maps. And that's so precious because it's fun to sit down and diagram the heart. And can you kind of give us a little example, kind of an oral description of what this is going to look like for someone, what the process does?
Yeah, the process is, I first started out with one heart map, and that's what's on the blog, what you love, what you've stored in your hearts, the memories that you have, people you love, the small moments in a day that, that comfort us. And it could be fears and worries as well. So that's how I started out. And when you make that kind of heart map, sometimes people use words, some people use drawing, some people actually kind of make a collage with photographs. Everybody ends up doing this in a different way. And that's the beauty of it. It's not a kind of a template that looks the same. So, one of the things that one of the choices that you have to make when you make a heart map is, where are you going to place certain things, certain memories, different people? And I always tend to put the most important at the time in the very, very center and then go out from there. And some people actually do not want to put things on their heart map. They want to put it outside. And I was working with a group, and there was a woman who had a lot of fear, and she did not want to put those actually on her heart map. So she put them on the outside around. And she said, I want to keep what I love and what protects me and what's sacred inside my heart map, and then keep everything else on the outside. So it looks different for everybody who does it. But and as I said, some people just use words. And some people who are more visual use a lot of drawings and color. And my heart map that I have published in one of my books called Heart Maps is, it's filled with color, and it has the meandering creek that ran behind my house. I grew up in Virginia, and that creek was where we used to go to escape all the family drama, looking for crayfish under the rocks, and all of that's there. As well as, I have a pair of eyes which are my eyes, and that's how I like to look at the world, with poetic eyes. So, I think for everybody it's going to be different. So as I said, I started out with just one heart map, and then I realized that there are actually multiple heart maps, 20 heart maps, 30 heart maps that we can try, and it focuses us in a different way. So one of the heart maps that I've also introduced is the gratitude heart map. And this is a heart map where you try to write or draw things that you're thankful for in your life. And usually it starts out with some of the more obvious thankfulness things like family and home and having enough to eat. And then as you live with it for a little while, and I suggest that people do that they come back and revisit their heart maps, then you begin to add the small things like a spider making a web in a wall or on a wall, or the first sip of coffee or whatever it is in the morning. Mm-hmm. You begin to take those very small moments in your life and pay attention to them and realize that that's part of what I'm grateful for. So that's another kind of heart map. There's a relationship heart map also, where it's just focus on your connections to people in the world. And it doesn't have to be your positive connections. It can be people that you feel have hurt you or you struggle with. But family, friends, coworkers. So that's another focus. So there's really lots of different kinds of heart maps, but I think it's probably best to start with the more general heart map of what you love in the world, what you've stored in your heart, and that will kind of dictate where you'll go next.
That's wonderful. You did a great job of explaining those. Thank you. So if somebody's having writer's block, since it seems like this kind of came from the writing thing, and, we do have a lot of listeners that are actually holistic practitioners, people who've had life-changing experiences. Now they want to start to write about it. And a lot of times it's, oh my gosh, what do I put in? What do I put out? How do I get past writer's block? How could we use this tool to actually help us start to create in writing what it is that we want to bring to life?
Well, I think just starting to create your heart map, writing down exactly what you care about, who you care about, what you love in the world, your memories, your experiences, and when you put that on your heart map, and then revisit it. Once you feel like you've kind of, you have a map that really represents your inner life. Look at it again. And you, as a writer, I know to kind of, it feels like a kind of tug at my heart, the things that I know that I want to write about. So as you revisit and re-look at your heart map and reread it, pay attention to those places where it kind of makes your heart beat a little faster. And those are usually the places where the writing happens. And so I suggest that people, even take another heart template and take that one place on your original heart map and then map it out in as much detail as you can. And then whether you write poetry or prose or fiction or even just journal writing, you can take that and use some of the language that you've already written on your heart map and just free associate. And it's amazing how, especially people who are blocked or feel like, oh, I just don't know how to get this down. It takes away that pressure so that it becomes a very natural, easy process for writing.
That sounds lovely. It's an interesting time right now. I've talked to a lot of people, especially as we're going through these eclipses and things that are happening this month. There are a lot of people that are going deeper into ourselves, getting to know ourselves at a deeper level, questioning everything, getting rid of what isn't working, making big changes, calling in more of our authentic selves. There's a lot of changing happening. And so I think it's a beautiful time to have you on the show talking about heart mapping, because this can be such a powerful tool in our journaling to really get reconnected to our heart at a deeper level. What's important to me now? What is trying to come forth in me that I'm not giving voice to? What wants my attention? Wouldn't those be good things to map out on a heart map?
Absolutely. Yeah, you said it so beautifully. Absolutely. That's what a heart map is. And, I read something somewhere, a lot of people have done mind maps where you map out kind of what you're thinking. But this is different from a mind map. This is really, you map out, it's kind of a to be list, who you are. What are your deepest memories? And, the interesting thing about mapping is that, humans have mapped since the beginning of humans, and there's a reason for it. And part of it is that I realize that we all made these maps already of our lives. We have them. So if I asked somebody to think of your childhood home, you have a map in your mind right now and in your heart of where you grew up. And some of it's, if you put an X at places that were not so happy in your childhood home, and then some places where you felt like you were loved. Everybody has an emotional map already in their hearts, stored there. A lot of it's unconscious, so we don't realize that it's there, but it is there. And so what heart mapping does is it makes that map that we've already made visible. And as I said, I was speaking to you beforehand when I worked I worked with people in recovery from, addiction, alcohol and drugs, and with heart mapping. And the interesting thing was that, when they first went into rehab, there's a lot of regret and shame and feeling, that you've made mistakes. And as we heart mapped together, one of the things that I think they realized was that there were so many good things and so many positive things and so many ways that they loved the world and the people in their lives, in addition to some of the, the hard and struggle that they've had, that by the time they finished mapping their hearts, they realized that, this journey has been complicated and you've already mapped it out, but sometimes we just focus on the negative rather than on what we've loved and the positive things that have happened in our lives. So this makes that visible. It makes that map that we've already made visible to us.
I love the way you describe that. So as you were talking, what I was remembering was I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat, and about day 3, you're going out of your mind because you can't talk, you can't write, you can't do anything. You just sit there with your feelings and things come up. And what I realized when I stayed with the process as we moved into the following days and I had my breakthrough was that when I put that block up around that certain time frame that I didn't want to remember anymore because it hurt too much, that blocks the good and the bad stuff. All these good memories came flooding forward that I hadn't felt in years because I'd blocked them back there with the bad stuff. And what a fun process for anybody who's been through addiction recovery, sexual trauma, any trauma that wants to go back and really explore what all got left behind there, the good stuff. What a great way to focus on that and let it expand into a whole heart map. That'd be a wonderful activity.
That's wonderful. It's a great idea. So beautifully said. Absolutely. There's a quote by one of my favorite poets. His name is Rilke, and he said, perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Perhaps everything that frightens us is in its own deepest essence something helpless that wants our love. And I think about, as a child, so I was so filled with fear and worry. And if I only had known that what frightened me then and now, is something helpless that wants to be loved. And I think that brings out, a heart map can bring out those things that we feel that we've kind of cut off, as you said, that we don't want to think about. We don't want to go back there. And that and it's not, to put it under a microscope, but it's to make a full picture so that you realize that there's a lot of power and love in even those painful things that happen to us. And that it's really, I think to live in the world as somebody who's trying to be kinder and kinder to other people, but also to myself. And so I think that heart mapping kind of brings out that kindness that we need to show ourselves, especially if we're struggling with something. Sometimes we can be very hard on ourselves.
Yes. And particularly, we're coming from an era that has been so mind-based, as you pointed out, and we're trying to get back to the heart. Individually and collectively, we're trying to come back and reconnect to our feelings and to being a more sensitive feeling society instead of just a mind-based society. And that's new stuff for a lot of us that have spent most of our lives in our heads. So it's great to have this tool to be able to access that and figure out how to do that again. And coupled with some of the things that we talk about on many of these other shows around meditation and different healing practices and ceremonies, to come out of that, this is a great integration tool to bring forth some of the stuff that's come up for healing and really stay in the feeling side of it instead of getting back into our head and getting lost in the same jumble again. So there are so many applications for what you've got here. I believe you have a book coming out to talk about that, don't you?
I do. It's the new book is called Map Your Heart, Chart Your Life. And there will be 30 different kinds of heart maps with questions to guide people in mapping your heart. And then also ways that you can extend your heart maps through writing or doing collage. And it's, it has a lot of different examples from people from all over the world who have mapped their hearts. And I really look at it as kind of a navigation tool for, because if we know what we're feeling, if that becomes visible to us, it helps us chart our lives. It really does. It helps us. It's kind of a compass, not to mix metaphors, but it's a compass for us for how, for choices that we make that are difficult, or living our lives with authenticity. And, we know what's right. We do. We know what's right. We know the choices. And sometimes they're hard because what's really inside of us is buried so deeply. So this is just a guide. And as I said, there are 30 different kinds of heart maps in the book. So if you're struggling with, a relationship, you can make a heart map, just mapping out your relationship and what's good about it and what you love about it, and also what maybe what you're struggling with. And it will become clear to you after you finish your heart map. It will become clear exactly what you think about it, what you feel about it, what's truthful. So yeah, the book, it's going to be, it's going to be out in a year or so, but, and it's going to have a lot of different templates in it. So the people actually, not really a workbook, but it's going to have that embedded inside of it. And it's a tool for writing, but it's mainly a tool for all of us, just to go inside more and to live more authentic lives.
So have you found in the work that you've done with children around heart mapping that it's a lot easier for them to get to their feelings? They haven't already compartmentalized them and shut them down. Can they just create a heart map very quickly and easily, or do they too struggle with it?
They usually heart map pretty easily. That's the joy of working with children, is that their hearts are right there and they're so open, and they have inspired me in so many ways. And, I am always drawn to the children though, who have a lot of worries and fear, as I did as a child, who may feel like they don't know how to write. They don't know how to, do a lot of things. They feel like they're not the best in the class at anything. And those are the kids who are usually, when I walk in the corners or in the back of the class, and they're very quiet. And those are the kids, when they begin to map their hearts are just so filled with beauty and love for the world. And something's hurt them, so they can't get it out. But I also, I found that it's such a natural tool that even adults that I work with, I've only had one adult that I've worked with who has struggled and didn't know what to put on his heart map. And he was actually in a rehab center, and he was going through detoxification. And so he was sitting there with a blank heart map for probably a good 15, 20 minutes. And I went over and sat at his table and just started to create my own heart map, no pressure. And all of a sudden, he picked up the pen and he started to write, and he put words up at the very, very left-hand corner at the heart. And when we went around and shared, and he shared one thing on his heart map that he could put down, which was, I have been a good dad. And so, I think that to get back to your question about children, I think sometimes they have an easier time, but I've really felt that, it depends on your life. It depends on how much access you've had to your inner feelings. And I've worked with kids who really, really have difficult lives. And sometimes they are so grateful and thirsty to share some of the things they've gone through with other people. And this is a safe way to do it because you're not being asked to write. So there's no spelling or grammar. You're just being asked to fill in your heart. And, in a lot of the classes that I've worked with, we've brought in counselors to sit with us so that we could, we have heart-to-heart talks and shares about what they've put on their heart maps. But as I said, nobody except for this one man that I've worked with has ever really left their hearts blank. And again, he picked up his pen and eventually, wrote something. But it's a very non-intimidating tool because, I think with writing, what happens is that people think they have to get it right, that there's some rule they have to follow. And this is not really writing. I mean, this is mapping, this is drawing, this is putting words down, and there's no right and wrong. So it's a very natural process.
I think it's wonderful that you're finding ways to share it like this, and especially with populations that have been through some kind of trauma and are recovering from that. I can see so many possibilities for the use of this, and I'm delighted that you are expanding the audiences that you're sharing it with and the ways that you're sharing it. Do you also do workshops and things, or where do you see yourself moving forward with this and sharing heart mapping?
I do. I've done workshops for the past 30 years. I've given workshops and all over the world, and I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. And now it's shifting a little bit away from the writing. Usually there are writing workshops, but now these are just heart mapping workshops. And actually, I've been asked to visit many schools and work with heart mapping with educators as well and teachers. But going into places where people have dealt with trauma or dealing with trauma, it's so powerful, and I feel like this is the direction that the heart maps want to go. So I feel like a conduit for that.
And a lovely one you are, and very, very well spoken and very heart-centered, which is so beautiful. And I think we can all learn a lot about loving ourselves unconditionally as we map our hearts and accept the totality of who we are. Because, it's one thing to say, oh, I wouldn't be who I am without the trauma as well as the good stuff. But it's another to see it all right there on paper, not out in the ether somewhere, but actually concrete on paper with colors, and to really absorb that really is how we ended up being who we are, and a great tool for loving ourselves. So I appreciate you sharing it in the ways that you do with the world, and coming on the show and sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure talking with you.
Well, I like to ask my guests at the end if there's a parting thought that you would like to leave us with today.
I think just, remembering that, and this is for myself as well, just, without feeling ourselves in the world, without that heart work, that life becomes mundane and filled with tasks. And so, I think just to remind everybody that we are heart beings, and it's really all about keeping our feelings at the forefront and remembering that all of them are beautiful and should be cherished. And I think, heart maps can be one strategy for that kind of work.
A beautiful one. Thank you so much, Georgia Hurd, for being with us today. And again, your website, heartmaps.com. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you. My pleasure.